is a little different this week because we're going to talk about the Ravens as we always do, but we're going to talk a little fantasy football. So something like that. I have been pretty good. I used to be pretty good at fantasy football. I won a championship in the last couple 3 years. I'm a little bit of a drought, but like for years, I was really good at fantasy football. I played a lot of fantasy football back in the days with when they had to when before Yahoo and all this cool stuff. Now it makes it easy where you had to write down the scores and all of that stuff. So fantasy football is a great way to actually help yourself as a fan um, with stats and numbers and predictions and things like that. So it'll help you also in your fandom, and it's a really fun thing to do as well. Millions of dollars in gambling is passed from the with fantasy football. Now we really don't talk gambling here, but look, we all know there's a lot of money in football and gambling and everything like that, and it's a fun thing to do. So we're not telling you to spend money. This is just for entertainment purposes only. Do not sue me talking about fantasy football as far as that goes. A lot of you now are doing daily picks with all that. Not going to go over that too much, but this is now for more of if you're drafting a team at the beginning of the year with the season. I know a lot of you now are doing DraftKings and other things like that, but I really think this will kind of help you guys out there if you are doing DraftKings even or something like that. That this will kind of be a barometer. Now we're going to talk about Ravens players on this. Where do the Ravens rank on fantasy football as far as ranking? Interesting. The Ravens are different than a lot of teams here. So we're going to go ahead and go over how the Ravens look kind of in fantasy football. So the offense, the fearless leader, Lamar Jackson. Um, the first column here is 10 teams in the round that they're going to be drafted in. So for the most part, I do a 10-team league when I play. That's usually just the way I've done it. So this is about the round they would be taking in a 10-team league. If you're not out there in a 10-team league, maybe you've been in the league for a long time, 40, 50, not necessarily a 10-team league, but if you're in a league where you have 12 or 13 or 14 players, this will give you an overall ranking. That's the second column. So the second column is just an overall ranking. The third column is the position. That's the overall position of the player that of the total board. So when somebody is in spot one, spot two, whatever, you see that? Okay, so that means they're the best in the league or whatever, etc. So it kind of tells you with that what the rankings are on the board. So you do a lot of this in fantasy, right? This type of stuff. Lamar Jackson, our fearless leader, the MVP, reigning MVP in the National Football League. With fantasy football, little surprised that Lamar isn't higher. Usually, I'm actually surprised that Lamar isn't higher. He's actually, if you're gonna draft him in a league, the recommendation about second or third round, you could probably get him there. I think like even in some drafts, it's going to be 4 or 5. I wouldn't wait that long if you really want Lamar. Second or third, I'm actually fine with that. I see him in the top 40 or 50 in a lot of boards as well, top 40. I'm a little surprised he's not higher, right? Because you know what, Lamar, you know you're going to get passing yards, not top shelf, not maybe the best in the league as far as passing yards, but you know you're going to get a lot of rush yards, and you know you're going to get a lot of TDs rushing, etc. So I'm a little surprised that Lamar's not higher, but quarterbacks in a lot of ways, even when they're really good, aren't as high in fantasy. As strange as that is to seem, because wide receivers now, it used to be just running backs, but wide receivers now, running back, they usually go higher. So, but a Lamar, I got no problem if you really like him, if you want to take him earlier than that. I have him QB 1 to 3. That's about right. If you take him first as a QB, I got no real problem with that. Most leagues are going to take Mahomes, whatever. See Josh Allen there a lot. 1 to 3. That's probably where you're going to see Lamar. Derrick Henry at running back. Round 5, 6 for Derrick. Derrick's going to be pretty high. Here's another one. If you're taking him a little bit higher, don't have a huge beef with that. It depends on the league as well, how fast the running backs are leaving off the board. So if it's more guys traditional taking the running backs and not as much the wide receivers, which you see more nowadays, not as many as that. Derrick Henry, if you take him a little bit earlier, I got no real beef with that. 10-team league, he should be around at around 5 or 6. If you take him 3 or 4, it's okay. I got no real beef. It to me depends on how fast these guys are going off the board for Derrick Henry. About 15 to 25 total. I would say there he's ranked in there. Like I said, running backs a little bit higher always than QBs usually. So Derrick Henry's going to be pretty high as well. 8 to 12 quarterback in the league. So running backs go pretty high. He's around 15 to 25. Running back 8 to 12, depending on which league you're in. That's about right for Derrick Henry. I wouldn't take him one. So that's what you look at with running back. Are you going to take him first overall? Are you going to take him like Christian McCaffrey? Or I see Bryce Hall high a lot. I don't know about that. It was about second round. Yeah. About round 5. Not that. I wouldn't take him that high as well. But he's about 8 to 12 round, 8 to 12 in there, 15, that's about right for Derrick. Justice Hill. Justice Hill might have some impact. This is definitely a late round pick. So 13 to 15, he's going to go undrafted in a lot of leagues. You being a Ravens fan, or if you like Ravens, you understand, might not be a bad choice to take a flyer on 200 plus. I don't think he's going to be on a lot of boards. Undrafted, I think he's going to go on a lot. I think he's worth taking late if you like him. Definitely, if you're like me and you like to wait to see and draft how training camp goes a bit, might be a good idea to take a Justice Hill late. But otherwise, undrafted. One thing about winning a fantasy draft or anything, even if you have DraftKings or anything like that, good idea to take a guy. Watch the board after the draft is over. This is definitely a guy I would keep an eye on, Justice Hill. So because he's going to contribute. Zay Flowers, around 3-4 for Zay Flowers. About 45 to 55. That's about where he is. That's about where I take him. About round 3-4. This is, again, you got to watch. You got to watch running backs. You got to watch wide receivers flying off the board. I think he's in the next tier. You're going to have Tyreek Hill go early in your draft. You're going to have Justin Jefferson go early. You're going to have Jamar Chase go early. You're going to have that. So there's a tier. CeeDee Lamb, and I think about where he is, he's in that next tier down. So after you get rid of those 7, 8, 10 elite guys, then you're going to have Zay Flowers in there, somewhere in there. Round 3-4, if you haven't taken a receiver, I think this is a decent bet. He's going to be the Ravens' number 1 receiver, 45 to 55. I would probably stay there in this case, unlike a Derrick Henry or Lamar, if you want to go earlier, simply because he's not as proven. I generally don't want to take guys that aren't as proven. 45 to, I generally don't want to do that. Kind of let the board fall with those guys. Wide receiver overall, 20 to 25 in the league. That next tier, not the tier behind that, bordering on out of that, but about the next tier of starters. So you get your studs, you get your really good starters, and then that's about what Zay Flowers is, about their top 20. Rashad Bateman, round 13 to 15. It's okay to take him a little bit higher. Again, kind of like with a Justice Hill, what I just said. See how camp is going. If he's having a good camp, if he's doing well early in camp, I got no problem with taking Bateman a little bit higher, but otherwise, about 13 to 15. Second tier, like he's about the 4th tier of starters. So you got elite guys, then you got like almost elite, then you got like a Zay Flowers area star, Rashad Bateman. You could steal him. That's maybe why he's worth taking early as well. He's definitely going to be the number 2 wide receiver. Ravens not going to throw the ball a lot, so he doesn't have a ton of value. Okay, but he is a starter. So definitely what I see with Rashad Bateman, definitely a guy bye weeks, right? You're going to have guys not be able to play on bye weeks. he's definitely a guy. Definitely you DraftKings though, guys out there, daily draft guys, Yahoo Fantasy Daily. Rashad Bateman is a good guy to keep an eye on a weekly basis. Like he has a good game or a good stretch of game or he's a good matchup. He's definitely a guy to keep an eye on in that situation as well. Couple more. 13 to 15 for Devontae Walker. He's definitely going to be undrafted. He's about 200 plus overall, probably maybe 300. Keeper league guys, always be looking for rookies. So if you're in a league where you can keep a guy year after year after year, Devontae Walker, a good rookie, not a bad bet to maybe take late in your draft if you go ahead and draft. So you're going to be drafting guys and keep them. Not an actually bad thing to do because he may not starting this year. He could be starting next year. It is an opportunity for him to be the third receiver, I think, for the Ravens. So it is possible. I don't think I wouldn't draft him necessarily. Not a bad choice if it's late, very, very late, 15th, 13th, or something like that. Definitely need a receiver. Again, I think if you're definitely drafting sooner rather than later in July, I would just wait unless I was in a keeper league with him. Nelson Aguilar, definitely he's going to be undrafted around 13 to 15. Again, kind of like a Justice Hill, he could be the third receiver. This is more likely the third receiver, but I would say late with him. Here's with him, though. I know he's going to contribute. So if you go ahead and draft him, got no real problem with that. If you go ahead and draft him, some guys maybe just good to sit on the end of it, but you're not going to play him a lot because he's definitely a backup receiver. Here's a guy very much at the top of the board, Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews, I think, is number in that second or third round in the 10-team league, like that second or third round, definitely top 25. I think Andrews is going to be the number one wide receiver in number one tight end in a lot of leagues. Okay, you're gonna have Sam Laporta, you're gonna have Travis Kelce, and you're gonna have Mark Andrews. Why is Andrews gonna be so high? He always like who do the Ravens throw to? The tight ends, definitely a guy that you're gonna look at that is gonna be drafted high. I could see him as high. I do see number one. It is definitely not necessarily true, but I can see a lot of drafts. Some guys wanting to take Mark Andrews as the top tight end. He could drop as low as 4. He's not going to be around late. There's like 4 Kelce, Sam Laporta, Mark Andrews, and Kittle. Those are the elite, right? So if you want that elite production, there's a drop off after that. There's a big drop off after that. So definitely, if you want Andrews, definitely he's going to be early. I don't see drafts where he's falling out of the top 40. After round 4, he'll be gone. I think in almost all of them. And Isaiah Likely, round 13 to 15 at the very end. This is probably a very, very good pick. You keeper league guys, this might be good too. You have an Isaiah Likely on your team. He could develop into some. I don't know what his future is going to be with the Ravens. He's kind of entering year 3 as a starter, but he definitely could be a guy that could go to a different team in free agency and really start, especially with the lack of tight end production around the league. So definitely he's a guy like that. Also to daily fantasy guys, definitely if you're looking at a guy, definitely keep an eye on him some Sundays. If you don't have a Mark Andrew, if you don't have something like that, that would work. In a more traditionally very late second tight end, no reason to really take him as well. But I tell you what, to take Mark Andrews and Likely on the same team, not a bad idea, right? You generally want to take guys with different bye weeks, but I could understand the thinking because Andrews is going to give you some Andrews. You know you're going to get great production. Likely, I could see you could put Mark Andrews in that X spot on the draft. Like you could put a tight end or a running back or whatever in that spot. You're gonna have some teams do that with an Andrew, and if you like Isaiah Likely, you could put him there. And it's fascinating to see how Isaiah Likely does, but you don't have to pick him high. That's something we got to keep an eye on. Couple more here. The GOAT, Justin Tucker. Somebody always argues with me with draft that you only can take kickers in the last round. You can't take a kicker before. This is the exception. This is the exception. Tucker is going to be the first kicker off the board almost all the time. So if you want Justin Tucker, you're going to have to go earlier than the projection. You have the projection, see him like 150 to 170. You're going to have to take him, I think, to get him for sure, 7th, 8th round. You may get a draft. You never know how that goes. Usually when I see a lot of this with kicker and defense, once somebody does it, the floodgates open. Okay, so take Tucker. There goes Harrison Butker. There goes the Ravens defense. There goes whatever. There goes the Niners defense, etc. The floodgates open right there. So whoever's the first one, then okay, well I gotta get so definitely. So the projection is there. You're gonna have to go earlier for Justin Tucker. I can't think. I've never not seen him in the last 3 or 4 years go before that. Definitely easy number one kicker on the board. Ravens defense 8-9. You can almost put them in the same category. Buffalo, San Fran is going to be a little bit higher. 8-9 maybe the route you have to go if you want the Ravens. I'm a little in the modern NFL with defense, a little less to move up early for defense, a little more willing to wait there with the defense personally. But I think the Ravens defense could be the best in the NFL. Maybe not. Defense also too in fantasy doesn't impact the way it used to, in my opinion. It used to be like almost like the kick. Like if you had a Justin Tucker, you got the loophole. It's definitely worth doing. If the defense is not quite as much, Ravens defense you want is because they get so many takeaways. So definitely they have a good defense. I think 1 through 4 you'll see it. So I definitely think the Ravens defense is interesting to go ahead and take in your league. There you go, guys. Ravens fantasy predictions. So looking and seeing having a little fun, seeing how the Ravens would do in fantasy football as well, with a lot of those players. Interesting to see how well the Ravens will do. I've always thought Lamar's underrated in fantasy. I don't know why. I'm kind of perplexed to why I'm seeing Josh Allen ahead of Lamar Jackson. That's a little confusing to me. Why Josh Allen's ahead of Lamar Jackson? But it's fantasy. So have fun. Go win your league with fantasy football there.